This is the Huawei MediaPad M3. The MediaPad M3 is one of the first really big Huawei products to make its way to the United States, and is sort of the sign of more things to come as the company continues with its big push over here in the Western market come 2017. Now with the MediaPad M3, we're looking at an 8.4-inch Android tablet with a price tag of $299. There's a 2K display on here, all aluminum and glass build, and a pretty impressive spec sheet to boot. The MediaPad M3 certainly does have a lot riding on it, and does Huawei's work pay off, or is there still a bit of work left to do here? My name is Joe Martin with PhoneArena, and we're going to find out all that and more in our full review of the Huawei MediaPad M3. Right off the bat, one of the biggest selling points and strong suits for the Huawei MediaPad M3 does have to do with its design. We're looking at a tablet that measures in at 7.3 millimeters thick and features a weight of 310 grams. Now this does make it just a hair thicker and heavier than what you're going to find with the iPad mini 4, but nonetheless this is still a very trim and very slim tablet that has enough weight there so it still feels sturdy while you're holding it, but doesn't feel like it's going to weigh your hand down after prolonged use sessions. The tablet is crafted entirely out of aluminum and glass, creating for a product that feels incredibly premium and high-end. The back of the M3 is about 95% aluminum, with a strip of glass across the top where the rear-facing camera does lie. This creates for a look that's somewhat reminiscent to what you're going to find with the Nexus 6P, and it's a look that I really hope Huawei sticks to for quite some time. Huawei decided to use on-screen navigation buttons for the M3, but below those is where you're going to find the MediaPad M3's fingerprint sensor. Setting up the scanner is very easy and quite speedy upon first use, and I never experienced any sort of issues while using it to unlock the tablet while testing it out. It's very fast, very accurate, and it really is a great addition to have on a tablet like this. In regards to the display, the Huawei MediaPad M3 features an 8.4-inch screen with a more traditional aspect ratio of 16:9. Now this is a bit different from the past two tablets I reviewed, whose aspect ratio was 4:3, but this certainly isn't a bad thing at all. A 4:3 aspect ratio is arguably better for doing things like browsing the web and reading ebooks, but the 16:9 one that is present here on the M3 is still supreme when it comes to doing things like playing games and watching videos. Huawei decided to opt for an IPS LCD panel with the M3's display, and it boasts an impressive resolution of 2516 by 1600. Now this creates for a count of 359 pixels per inch on the display, and overall I really didn't have any qualms with how the screen looks here. Colors are nice and vibrant, text is crisp, and whites are extremely stark. My only real complaint would be that the screen doesn't get quite as bright as I would have liked, but then again, seeing as how this is something that you're likely going to be using indoors the majority of the time, it really shouldn't prove to be that big of an issue. While the build quality and design of the MediaPad M3 may be one of its strong suits, one of its biggest weaknesses definitely has to do with its interface. The tablet is running Android 6.0 Marshmallow with Huawei's EMUI 4.1 layered over it, and this creates for a software situation that is very much so less than ideal. Android Marshmallow on its own is perfectly fine, but when paired with EMUI 4.1 is where trouble starts to ensue. There's no app drawer at all present on the MediaPad M3 and no ability to add one. The timeline style take for the notification shade is anything but practical, and various animations throughout the UI tend to get hung up from time to time. Now a lot of these pain points that I have with the MediaPad's M3 software do look to be resolved with Android Nougat and EMUI 5.0. However, until the M3 does get this update, we're left with a software package that feels incredibly dated and unfinished. Those issues aside, it's really only fair to point out some of the benefits that this current form of EMUI does have to offer. You can switch around the placement of the on-screen navigation buttons so that they're in the spot that's most comfortable for you, and you can even add something such as an additional toggle to bring down the notification panel. Huawei has also included something that they call the floating dock, and this is essentially a floating navigation bar that pops out whenever you tap on the on-screen circle that you can position on any side of the screen. These little tweaks here and there do create for a bit of added functionality that you simply don't get with stock Android, and once the update to 5.0 does arrive for EMUI, the interface and software experience with the M3 is going to be worlds better. However, with no confirmed date from Huawei as to when the update will actually happen, we're sort of left waiting in the dark on that one. In regards to the processing package we're looking at on the MediaPad M3, We have Huawei's own high silicon Kirin 950 processor that's clocked at 2.3 GHz. The Mali T880 MP4 makes up the GPU, and 4GB of RAM helps to ensure that you can multitask with ease. In regards to the processor side of things, we sort of have a mixed bag here with the MediaPad M3. When I ran the Geekbench 4 benchmarking test for the MediaPad M3, the single-core score came out as 1542, and the multi-core performance resulted in a score of 4744. Now compared to the Google Pixel, these results are quite a bit higher, and it left me thinking that I was going to get phenomenal performance with the Kirin 950 on the MediaPad. While light to medium weighted tasks such as web browsing, streaming 1440p video on YouTube, going through Facebook, Twitter, and checking emails, etc. all ran like butter on the MediaPad M3, I ran into quite a bit of performance issues when playing more graphically intense games such as Mortal Kombat 10 and Modern Combat 5. Now while both games were certainly playable, the performance here seemed to be a bit lacking, especially when compared to the similarly priced Asus ZenPad 3S10 that I just recently reviewed. It took quite a bit longer for these games to actually open up on the MediaPad M3, and I noticed that time to time numerous of the in-game animations appeared considerably slower and a bit more jittery than what I was really expecting out of the tablet. Now while the Kirin 950 is certainly a very capable processor on its own, as reported by the benchmarking test that I ran on it, I'm led to believe that there are various software optimization issues here and there between apps and games that don't take full advantage of the horsepower behind the 950 and result in this somewhat lackluster performance. The MediaPad M3 is still a very fast tablet for most use cases, but there are certain situations here and there where it does feel quite a bit slower than it really should. And unfortunately, those situations do detract quite a bit from the overall joy of using this thing. As for storage, the M3 comes equipped with an internal capacity of either 32 or 64 GB. Now that should prove to be more than plenty of space for most people, but if you find your storage needs to be even more intensive than what the tablet is capable of out of the box, you can choose to add an additional 128 GB thanks to support for microSD cards. In regards to the camera situation that's present here on the MediaPad M3, we're looking at an 8 megapixel sensor for both the front and rear facing camera. The camera app itself is a bit reminiscent to the one found on iOS, but there are quite a bit more settings to play around with here. Swiping to the left brings up all of your settings for the camera, including options for adding a countdown timer, audio control, adjusting the resolution of your photos, and more. Additionally, swiping to the right will showcase all of the various shooting modes that are included, such as Pro Photo, Beauty, Video, Pro Video, HDR, Panorama, Time-Lapse, Document Scan, and a bunch more. So, just what kind of photos is the MediaPad M3 capable of? In one word, they look pretty meh. The tablet kicks out considerably better photos than what Asus's ZenPad 3S10 was capable of, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this is a good camera. I was able to capture some photos that turned out looking fairly nice, but there were others I took that ended up looking like an oil painting. With ample lighting conditions and a steady hand, it is possible to capture passable photos on the M3 that are very fine for uploading to social media. However, as soon as the light starts to go down, the already ho-hum quality gets considerably worse. Moving over to the front-facing camera, this is perfectly suitable for Snapchat, Instagram, etc. Details are fairly sharp thanks to the 8 megapixel image quality, and while you're likely going to get a better overall result from the front-facing camera that's on your smartphone, it will suffice here on the MediaPad M3 if you're in a pinch and absolutely have to capture that selfie. Switching over to video quality, we're met with more of the same. The resolution is capped at 1080p Full HD at 30 frames a second, and while the video doesn't necessarily look great, it's also far from the worst that I've ever seen in a tablet in the similar price bracket. Highlights are fairly well balanced while shooting video, and autofocus is also fairly quick. Details are just fine, and similar to the image quality, problems here start to really arise when light creeps out of your shot. Darker areas in your video are quick to create for a lot of digital noise that you really don't want, and right here is a primary pain point for videos and photos on the M3. In short, while it will get the job done if you absolutely do insist on recording video with your tablet, results will likely be far better with your smartphone. In addition to the really great looking 2K display, Huawei also put quite a bit of attention to detail with the audio experience here in the MediaPad M3. The company decided to partner with Harman Kardon to create the best possible audio experience for the M3, and for the most part, that partnership really does pay off. The MediaPad M3 features stereo audio thanks to dual speakers that are positioned on both the top and bottom of the tablet, and after some extensive listening sessions with the M3, I can safely say that this is a very solid audio setup. The dual speaker system on the M3 gets ridiculously loud, and while I greatly appreciate the ample volume that's present here, turning the volume settings up to the max do deteriorate the overall sound quality as a whole. Higher volume results in the M3 speakers sounding a bit dirty and not as clean as I would like, meaning that the speakers here definitely do favor loudness as opposed to overall quality. Huawei packed in a 5100 mAh unit into the MediaPad M3, and it results in a pretty solid setup. Heavy and continuous usage on the M3 will result in a screen on time of around 4 to 4.5 hours, whereas some more subdued and normal use with a tablet should see it squeaking out under 9 hours of use without needing to top up. When it does come time to charge the M3, Huawei's own quick charging solution keeps things extremely speedy. It took the MediaPad 159 minutes to charge from 0 to 100%, and considering the large nature of the battery inside this device, that's insanely impressive. With all of that said and done, where does that leave us with the MediaPad M3? First off, there are a lot of things to like here. Between the exquisitely well-made design and build quality, the gorgeous 2K display, and the pretty solid audio setup with the partnership with Harman Kardon and Huawei, this is a fantastic tablet if you're looking for something to browse the web with, listen to music, watch movies, etc. Pretty much if you want to consume multimedia, this is a great choice to do so. Unfortunately, it is hampered and held back by some of those issues I already talked about, such as the software optimization issues with the Kirin 950 processor, and the lackluster and somewhat unfinished software experience with EMUI 4.1 that's not going to change until we get the unannounced update to Android 7.0 Nougat and EMUI 5.0. Until that day comes, the MediaPad M3 feels a bit unfinished, and when that software update does get here, we could be looking at potentially one of the best Android tablets for $300. Until that day comes though, the MediaPad M3 does feel like a work in progress, and if you want something that's going to offer you a more refined experience, you can do a bit better with things like the iPad Mini 2 for a bit less money, the iPad Mini 4 for about $100 extra, or even the Samsung Galaxy Tab S2 with an 8-inch display size for $249 for the holiday season. This is still a good tablet, and if you want to buy it, you're going to get a decent experience, but just be aware that there are some software bugs here and there you're going to have to put up with. Personally, I'd go with something a bit more refined, but in the end, the choice is yours.